What is up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Welcome to a Steelers Source podcast where, of course, if you've been paying attention to the NFL rumor mill, it's about Davante Adams and the Las Vegas Raiders receiver who supposedly wants out. And the Steelers might be interested to talk about this more. I bring in Raiders superfan. I'm bringing Bryan Davis. What's up, Bryan? How's it going?
I love that you beat that one, but that's no problem. I do have some knowledge of the Raiders just because of professionalism, but black and gold till I'm dead and cold. I'm going to have to tell you that every single time, Jeff. But, this is interesting. It's when the Brandon Ayuk stuff dried up, it's funny that everybody went to who's the next guy going to be, and they're thinking of players. And the guy I was thinking of was not Davante Adams, because the Raiders actually felt that they had an opportunity, and by beating Baltimore, then the loss against Carolina, and he didn't play last week. But with him stepping up and saying, I want out, I want to be traded. And now that they're listening, it's interesting.
It is interesting. So let's get right to what our source has told us here at the Steel Curtain Network. And again, this is a source from inside the Steelers facility, so it's a trusted source. And I said this earlier on social media. I wanted to remind everyone that when you think about the Brandon Ayuk saga, we'll put it that way, you should have learned that there's certain sources you can trust and some that you can't. And our source has always been very honest. He's also always been right. So here's what our source is telling us about this particular individual and the situation. And in his words, he said the Steelers are quote unquote legitimate players for Davante Adams. Now, he does not believe that the Steelers are going to give up a first round draft pick for him. And there's probably a reason why. He's more of a rental player. We're going to talk about the contract implications here in a second. He said, but the Steelers could potentially be in the mix for a second round pick, and a player is sincere potential in regards to what the Steelers might be giving up. Now, a lot of fans are going to say that's way too much. I don't know who the player is. I just know that from what we're told, a second round pick and a potential player could be the offer the Steelers have on the table. But it's also important to note, and this is something else our source said, they know that other teams are interested. Before we talk about who those other teams might be, Bryan, when you hear that news, what's your initial take?
My initial take is the guy is a diva. The guy is cranky. He may cause some problems, but go grab him. And the reason I say go grab him, you seem to have your quarterback situation close to solidified, if not solidified, in Justin Fields. He needs weapons. This will help the ground game. This will help open up the ground game quite a bit. So with that, if you had Pickens and you had Adams, you throw in, if you keep him, a Calvin Austin, and then the tight ends emerging, throw in the fact that you have Najee Harris in the backfield, and this helps them not stack the box. I don't think you completely mortgage the future, but you could get away with losing a number two.
Yeah, and this is interesting because on social media the other day, Derek Bell, who actually works for Steelers now, I trusted him. I've had him on the Let's Ride podcast before. His takes are very honest, in my opinion. And he talked about how, listen, people always talk about they don't want to mortgage the future. He said, okay, I understand that thought process, but at the same time, how in the heck would you say that TJ Watt's going to be 30 years old like next month, I think. And so he's in the prime of his career. Cam Hayward is what, 35, 36, Bryan? How old is Cam now?
I believe he is, my goodness, I think he's 37, and I will have that information for you in a sec.
But Minkah Fitzpatrick is in the prime of his career. Like, what are we waiting for? Like, that's what this comes down to. And so there's a lot of people that ripped the Rams to shreds when they said, F them picks, and let's go out and build a team that can win a championship. And guess what? They did. They won the Super Bowl, and no one's ever going to look back and say, boy, what a stupid move that was. No, they won the Super Bowl. And I'm not saying that this team is a wide receiver away, but I will say that they are already a very competitive team with their current roster. I think if you add a talent like Davante Adams to it, that could maybe put them over the top. Bryan, what do you got?
Cam's only 35.
That's
so I did not realize that he just turned 35 in May. So okay. Born in 89. There you go.
So, Bryan, do you think this team is a wide receiver away?
Yeah. Well, why not? Because that's going to help you this helps you score maybe 10 more points a game. And I know that's lofty, but think about how close they've been to averaging 27 in a few of those games. So, I think an extra threat to add to George Pickens. And again, I think this opens up the running game as well. I think this puts you in definitely puts you in the playoff conversation and gives you the opportunity to win in the playoffs as well.
I think the Steelers were already in the playoff conversation. I think that this puts you in the upper echelon conversation.
Yeah.
This now puts you in this team could maybe hang with a Buffalo, Baltimore, Kansas City, the upper echelon teams in the AFC. Not that they couldn't anyways with the Steelers defense, but it would give them an offense that's a little bit more prolific. Now let's talk contract. So what we know is that every week that Davante Adams stays in Las Vegas, or at least under contract, almost $1 million comes off of his cap hit for this year. I think it's like $950,000 or roughly that number.
Right around there.
Yeah. So every single week, so after week 5, if no trade is done, he would then accrue that amount of money, and that would be one less $950,000 that would go to whoever that he gets traded to. But what is the future is a lot of people's questions. The future is that he has high salary cap hits in the next 2 years. Brian's going to talk about those in a second. He has a high salary cap hits the next 2 seasons, but it's no guaranteed money. So in other words, you could cut ties with him and nothing is guaranteed in that contract. However, the Steelers or any other team that gets to him, they would also have the opportunity to renegotiate a deal and change some of those numbers. But Brian, what are those cap hits?
All right. I got this from Dave Schofield, who sent this in to us. Adams has no guaranteed money after this year, but his base salaries for the next 2 years are 34.6 and 35.6 million. And that's if Dave remembers right, and I believe he does. Those middle digits might be one higher, he said. So this would, in essence, be for this season, it would have to do a rework deal or get released just like last year with Allen Robinson. So they could go that route, but the magic of being in the building, the magic of having a guy like Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan. So that's play for now. And if you win now, there's a lot more incentive to come back tomorrow.
Now, this is just personal opinion, but I'll say this. If the Steelers are going to give up a second-round draft pick and a player, I don't know who the player is, obviously, stated that multiple times. I do not want this to be a rental. I want them to be able to say, we want to rework your contract and we want you to stay for the next maybe 2 seasons or whatever. I'm not interested in Davante Adams for just the rest of 2024, leveraging that much money and a player for his talent set. Now, is he that good? I think he is that good. We've seen him absolutely decimate teams. He's a dominant player. But I also believe that if the Steelers are smart, and I do think they are, that they would absolutely say, we want the option to renegotiate a deal so that next year it's not we're just going to cut you because you don't want to pay that absorbent number. We want to keep you in-house. Brian, what's your take on that?
You know what? I agree with you. I would not want to have him as a rental. And like I just said before, I think there's magic in Tomlin and Khan, but would you give up a big time player and a draft pick to get that ring this year?
Who's the big time player?
No Davante, not big time player.
Okay.
But I mean, you might have to, here's the guys you might have to give up in this situation. Their wide receiver position really isn't that bad in Vegas right now, but the wide receiver I see them going for would be a guy like Calvin Austin III. You know how they love their speed there. I would think that they would go for someone like that. I saw somebody mention that it could be Van Jefferson. I couldn't imagine that being, a chip that makes a team go sold. You might actually see a guy like Nick Herbig go in this situation. And a lot of people look up and go, oh no. But I look back at the Pirates in 2015. Everybody wanted Bell, and they would not give him up. There was other guys they wanted. Polanco, they would not give him up. They could have gone and won a ring with a trade at the deadline. and they kept those prospects, those guys amounted to nothing. They're no longer in Pittsburgh, and we're gone from Pittsburgh right away. Not that much longer. So I know that's baseball and this is football, but would I give up a Nick Herbig? Yeah, I would. If you could win a ring now.
It's interesting. That's interesting. Now let's also talk about the other teams that could be interested in Davante Adams. And this is just what we're hearing, not from our source, but from reports online. The New York Jets are also a team. And there's some people out there that are suggesting the Jets could potentially give up a first-round draft pick for Davante Adams. And if that's the case, the Steelers could just be outbid. I don't think the Steelers are going to give up a first-round draft pick. Also, the New Orleans Saints have been rumored to be interested, and there's even been a rumor of the Baltimore Ravens. I haven't heard this one catch steam as much as the others, but a lot of the other rumors are based on Davante Adams' comfort with the quarterbacks at those spots. So you have Derek Carr in New Orleans, you have Aaron Rodgers in New York. It's definitely an interesting situation, and both of those teams are competitive football teams. And so, Bryan, in terms of the other teams out there, what do you think about that?
I think the Dallas Cowboys are also in the mix, especially with the Brandon Cooks news right now. I could definitely see that happening. Here's an interesting trade scenario that I saw thrown out there. San Francisco, straight up Adams for Ayuk, because they're not happy with the Ayuk situation. They have buyer's remorse already. I think that's a little crazier of a scenario, but that's one that's a possibility as well. I think the Jets are the front runner here, but the fact that he wants to go to a place where he's happier with that he's more comfortable with the quarterback, I don't think he gets a choice on this one. You demand a trade, you go where you go. I don't think the verbiage in his contract would stop him from going, and I don't think he's in a position right now where he's like, hey, I don't report if you trade me to the Steelers. Right. So I don't think that's a problem there.
A Hassan Reddick situation.
Yeah, and I saw the Jets. One of the proposals were the Jets sending a third-round pick and Hassan Reddick. I'm like, there's no way you make that deal, because Hassan Reddick wants the money. That's what happened when he got traded to the Jets. He wants the money. That he's prepared to not play. So I think that would be crazy. If they go with a first-round pick, the Jets will go. If somebody ponies up a first-round pick, that's it. He's going there, and I get it. Unless you're in, Jeff and I talked about this off camera. You know, if the Chiefs offer one or two number ones, which they're not going to, I still don't think they do it because that's you don't want to. That would be like the Steelers having the same situation and trading him to the Ravens.
Exactly. And so I think the fact that other teams are interested, and a lot of people are going to be disappointed, but I think the fact that our source said, and our source chooses words wisely. I know this from over a year of communicating with this individual. And when he said that the Steelers are legitimate players, that's not slang for him. Okay. And if you've listened to these source podcasts, we choose how we, in terms of how we dictate what they say. Those are authentic words. So if you're thinking, oh, this is a bunch of blown smoke, they're not going to do anything. If they don't do anything, it's because they were outbid. They are interested in Davante Adams. Now, Bryan, you have his stats there in case people want to know how he's played so far this year. He did miss last game with that reported hamstring injury, although I've seen a lot of Willy Wonka gifs of saying, oh, here's Davante Adams when he gets traded to a new team, and the scene where Willy Wonka's crippling around on a cane, and then all of a sudden he does a somersault and pops up and goes, ha-ha. So, what has Davante Adams done on the field?
All right, so in 3 games played, he has 18 receptions for 209 yards and a touchdown. But that is a team that has a very hampered running game right now, where they're hampered and there's a lot of they're not opening things up for the wide receivers. But if you look at it, the leading receiver, there's Brock Bowers, the number 1 draft pick, who is a tight end. He has 20 receptions in 4 games, 216 yards. But interesting to note here, Jacoby Myers has 19 receptions, has 1 more reception, but 8 less yards. So they have guys that can catch the ball as well as Trey Tucker. So they do not need Trey Tucker, who has 172 yards. And all of these guys have 1 touchdown. But with all that being said, they don't have to get a wide receiver in return for this. But Davante Adams with 209 yards in 3 games, that's averaging a little bit over, averaging actually 69.7 yards per game. He has 45 yak after the catch as well, 10 first downs so far. The guy would add so much, though, to this situation. And remember, the quarterback situation, if you're complaining about the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh, my gosh, they would go crazy for Justin Fields right now, because Gardner Minshew was benched temporarily in the Carolina game for Aiden O'Connell. It's not a great quarterback situation. That's one of the reasons Davante Adams wants out of here as well.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. We're going to have you covered at the Steel Curtain Network on our podcast platform, on our YouTube channel, as well as on steelcurtainnetwork.com. So make sure you check out all of those spots for all the latest information. Bryan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, you know what? I think this is an interesting one. It goes down to the compensation, and that's it. You will not see him go for a third. I would be shocked if Davante Adams goes only for a third. The player to be named is I don't think it's going to be a superstar. I think it's just going to be significant. The Raiders also have needs on the defensive line as well. So there, if you could think of a guy like Larry Ogunjobi, could be a guy that they throw out there too. I mean, I'm spitballing right now, but everything that I'm looking at here is saying that this is a deal that, although the Raiders say that they're listening, it seems like it's heating up real quick. Now, Diana Rossini was the first one to report this, and this was about 45 minutes to an hour ago, saying that the Steelers have already had conversations with the Raiders, and they are keeping an open line of communication. So, Jeff, that tells me that the Steelers have already said what they're looking to do. And Tom Telesco with the Raiders is saying, okay, I'm going to talk to everybody else. I will let you know where we're at. And open communication means I'll get back to you if somebody beats it.
So two questions for my final thoughts for you, and they're simple yes or no questions. Bryan, the first question is Davante Adams a member of the Raiders in 2 weeks when the Steelers play there in week 6?
No.
Is he a member of the Steelers?
I doubt it.
Okay.
But that would be saucy.
That would be
Oh my gosh. That would be amazing. And
it doesn't happen before this game. You say, all right, just stay there. We'll just see you out there in Vegas.
Yeah.
All right. This has been a good show. There's a lot to dissect, and we'll be on Thursday night for sure on the Steelers preview. Make sure you check out all of our podcasts. But Bryan, as always, thank you for your time, man. And he's not the super fan for the Raiders for nothing. Thank you.